anyone can read a self-help book or watch a finance YouTuber who will give you a reasonable formula to achieve a particular financial goal. There is an endless pool of content available for free in this day and age that will allow anyone to easily optimize their own financial situation. The life lessons and rules of thumb that are taught throughout this content truly do add value to people's lives every single day. However, without ever actually applying it to your own situation, these rules of thumb just end up being useless. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reece, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the doing component that lots of people end up glossing over when binging content to better their financial situation. I watch a lot of YouTube. I clock anywhere between 2 and 4 hours worth of content every single day. And I'm able to do this because most of the content I consume is people talking, which doesn't really require my eyes to be looking at a screen. So I listen while I do other things. And I would estimate that about 95% of the content that I consume just goes in one ear and comes out the other without action ever being taken against what I'm learning. And I've actually talked about a topic similar to this before, where I tried to give perspective about how sometimes we just do stuff, but it doesn't actually make a valuable contribution to our lives. That video in particular is called Am I Being Productive or Just Active? I've linked it down in the description below, along with some other videos I believe will tie nicely into today's topic. Feel free to give it a watch after this one if you're interested in learning more about the topic. Anyway, I don't know if back when I started watching this type of content, being finance or self-help type content, if I was taking action on what I was watching a hell of a lot more than I am today. And I believe that I probably was back then because my financial situation was a lot different to how it is today. I believe I have optimized my own situation as much as I possibly can for the most part, and that's why that 95% of content I watch is now more for entertainment purposes versus me actually learning something and implementing it into my day-to-day life. I've already done the work and now it's kind of automated. To be honest, I watch channels like Andre Jick and Whiteboard Finance, but don't really have the need to watch those types of channels anymore. Like I said, it's purely based on entertainment purposes now because I like the type of content they make. I still find it interesting, but I'm not actually using their content to better my own financial situation. And this is where we're really going to jump into today's topic, where I'm going to cover a set of rules of thumb that you definitely should be taking action on, and hopefully coming out of this video, they give you some incentive or some motivation to actually put them in place if they are not already in place in your own financial situation. So let's get straight into it by going over some of the most common rules of thumb that you absolutely should be implementing into your own life, in your own situation, in your own way. And I'm sorry if you have heard them before, they really are a good refresher, and they really are, in my opinion, the best rules of thumb for finance in general for a large audience, not specifically honing in on someone. I'm talking about almost every single person on this planet should be doing this for their finances, to optimize their financial situation, to work towards that comfy space in terms of finances, to not have to worry about spending money, to not have to worry about how they're going to pay bills. What I'm about to go through right now is what you should have already implemented into your life or be implementing after this video. Period. Rule number 1 is that you should absolutely be saving a portion of your take-home pay for your future. Whether you have the goal to be financially free or put a down payment on a house, this is going to be the number one way to do this over time. It is not going to be a short-term goal. It is definitely going to be something you need to work towards and build the habit of doing regularly. I personally do this by investing into the share market and crypto market regularly, and the amount that I invest in doesn't really matter all that much. The point is that I put money out of my take-home pay into those types of investments for the long term, with the intended purpose of hopefully being able to build a nice nest egg that I can rely on when my income sources stop, in terms of me no longer working in a full-time 9-to-5 job. The same being that the growth in the share market generally outperforms interest in a bank, which putting a small portion of my money in there should allow me over time to build a nice portfolio. And so far it has worked in my favor. Hopefully this continues on over the next 30 odd years of my life. Rule of thumb number 2 to follow, and this definitely is an important one as well, is to focus on paying down high interest debt, whether it be a credit card debt, an outstanding personal loan, potentially a car loan, and even your mortgage in some circumstances, where the mortgage one definitely can be argued, but the point is to pay down high interest debt first. This is definitely a rule of thumb that I do not see people following enough. I cannot comprehend how someone could be paying 22% interest on an outstanding credit card balance without freaking out. Interest accruing at these types of interest rates truly does add up, and it adds up quickly. I know people who have lost thousands of dollars in outstanding credit card debt based on just the interest repayments alone. Another good example is I know someone who owes about $15,000 on a car loan, and their interest rate is around the 6% mark. Now they have $20,000 in cash sitting in a bank account right now, and if you do the math, that means they're paying at 6% about $900 a year in interest to whoever that car loan is owed to. Now they have the money that they should be using in their bank account right now, because interest rates are terrible, to put towards paying down that loan. You know what they said to me? Because they don't understand the concept of how interest rates work. They said, oh, I don't want to miss out on the savings from the interest that the bank is going to pay me. If you work it out at their current interest rate, because interest rates are terrible, even though they are going up, they are earning roughly $100 a year on that $15,000. So they're losing $800 a year for doing the wrong thing. And the simplest way out of this entire scenario would be to pay off the car loan. And 6% is probably where I start the high interest rate component. If you look at credit cards that charge anywhere up to 22% for what you owe on that credit card, you could be paying 10 times this so fast, depending on how fast you're able to rack up credit card debt. The point that I'm really trying to make is that debt is bad in most circumstances, especially things like a car loan, credit card debt, personal loans. Focus on paying them down. Rule of thumb number 2 to follow is to focus on paying down bad debt. Rule of thumb number 3, and this is probably the most saturated rule of thumb on the internet, is to build an emergency fund up to 6 months of your living expenses. Now, I know how repeated this topic is, so I'm going to keep it short. Simply put, I have put a small percentage of my take-home pay into an emergency fund every single time I've been paid for the better half of the last decade. Over that period of time, the account has been built up to this point now where I definitely don't need to continue contributing money towards it. However, I am fortunate enough to continue doing this. I think it is invaluable having a safety net for both my mental health and my physical well-being, and it's something that you absolutely should do as well. And the last rule of thumb that I'm going to touch on today is that you should absolutely be diversifying your assets. How you diversify them? Well, I will leave that up to you, because everyone's situation is different and I can't specifically tell you how to do this. However, I have linked down in the description below some resources, which are videos I've made talking about those specific topics in particular, which you can then go away and learn a bit more about the topic if you're interested in learning more about asset diversification and how you should potentially be considering to invest your money. Just understand that leaving all of your money in a bank account is not going to help you become financially free or wealthy anytime soon. To be honest, it's not really going to do you many favors at all, because it's just going to eat away at your savings, making your money worth less over time. So things to keep in mind about following rules of thumb as they are written is that they should definitely be used more as a guideline and tailored to your specific individual needs. Everyone's circumstance is different, so it's important to make sure that they work for you in a manageable way. The other thing to consider as well, even including what I've talked about today, is that the way they are written, the way they are discussed, is general in nature. They are appealing to a general audience. They don't go into specific details. For example, I've just said save an emergency fund, and I've kind of given you some perspective of how I do it by putting $25 a week or $50 per pay, because I'm paid fortnightly, into that account. Now, some people would be like, oh yeah, easy. I can go away and put that kind of money into my emergency fund, no problems whatsoever. They'll go off and do that financial goal and succeed at it, no problems. Whereas for others, it might be a lot tougher to commit to that specific value of money. And this is where it comes back to using them as general guidelines and tailoring them to your own specific circumstance to make them more manageable, so you are able to still achieve the goal, but in your own scenario without it becoming too stressful or too worrying to achieve that. The concept behind rules of thumb are generally good, but it is important to understand that the implementation is the important part. That is the bit that you need to get right. And the final thing, in my opinion, to consider is that these rules of thumb are malleable, different to tailoring them to your circumstances. They are malleable, meaning once you start doing something, you can change everything about them to work in your current situation. If your situation gets worse or better, make them them adjustable so that you can scale up or scale down based on your ability to do whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. For example, as I started building an emergency fund, I was only putting about $10 a week into my account, where I've now been able to update that to be around about the $25 mark every single time I'm paid. And it could be higher, but I don't need the money in there at the moment. Touch wood. Touch some wood. But the point that I'm trying to make again is that these rules are malleable and you should adjust them over time so that it can improve how you're going about achieving these goals as you improve your own financial situations over time. Moving forward from this video, I will probably make an update or another video talking about other rules of thumb that I think are important to consider and definitely important to take action against. It's a good general guideline, general overview topic to talk about because there's lots of interesting things that come out of them. And today I've kind of just scratched the surface on some of the more common ones. For now, what I encourage you to do is actually reevaluate and assess if you are doing these things. You might have some outstanding debt that really needs some focus and attention to pay down. Make it happen. You might not actually be saving an emergency fund, which I find a lot of people in this day and age still aren't doing that. You should get on it. And that's where I'm going to leave you for today. If you enjoyed the video, like I said, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really helps the channel. I really appreciate the support and I will leave you there. Have a good day, have a good week. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.